Hi there, welcome back to Mysteries Channel. Thank you very much for clicking on my video. I hope you're doing well and dealing with the situation you're in well. There's not a whole lot else we can do right now, right? Today I'm going to talk about mass disappearances. You've heard of Roanoke, the Anasazi, the inhabitants of Easter Island, the Olmecs. There have been ships out there. There are many instances of mass disappearance throughout our history. And a great many times it's looked at as paranormal or urban legend or absolutely fake news. Like a journalist or reporter back in the day made up a story just to get some attention. But in reality, to this very day, large groups of people disappear because they are considered undesirable by either the government or the population at large around them. Examples could include the Uyghurs of China, anyone who doesn't love the supreme leader of North Korea, those who opposed communist and communist countries, even those who were indigenous to the land once colonists got their foothold on the land. Some examples throughout history would be the Jews in Nazi Germany, the Africans in South Africa, and no matter what country you live in or what continent, it is highly, highly likely at some point in history, your country has pulled some bullshit like this. The actual term is called forced disappearance. And I just want to revisit a few cases that have happened throughout history that actually may fall into forced disappearance and not in urban legend or paranormal. The first one I want to talk about is a report that came out in 1930. It came out in the paper The Pas out of Manitoba, Canada, and it was reported by a fur trapper named Joe LaBelle. Joe LaBelle went to a village that he was very familiar with. He had traded with the Inuits in this village many times. He frequented their establishments. He went back and forth between this village many, many times. It's not like he got lost and ran across an empty village. He knew these people. He traded with them. But upon entering this village, he came across an eerie silence. Now, this place was a bustling village of 2,000 people. They had kayaks. They also did a lot of hunting, fur trading. They were part of the local economy and the economy at large. And he had never gone there before where there was nobody around or no sound. Because it was so eerily silent, he thought there must be something big going on. He decided to go and start checking out some of the huts to see if maybe there was sickness going through. Maybe there was some sickness going through. Maybe there was a town meeting that something important happened. But as he visited every hut, he realized it was empty. The whole place was a ghost town, and off in the distance, he saw a light flickering in the forest. He decided at that point he was going to go check it out. Maybe they're out there, but he just had an ominous feeling. Something in his gut told him something very bad happened here. You don't just have a village of 2,000 people disappear. Something was amiss. So he went out towards the woods, and then he thought better of it. He's like, No, I need to report this and I need to report it now. He ran nonstop to the nearest telegraph office and sent a message out to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The Mounties turned up hours later. Maybe it was a day, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. And they were also baffled by the fact that an entire village had gone missing. An enormous search party was sent out to go look for the missing villagers, but they were never found. The search party did unearth some strange findings though. All the sleigh dogs that belonged to the Inuit were found buried 12 feet under a snowdrift at the perimeter of the camp. All of them had starved to death. The search party also established that all of the Inuit provisions and food had been left in their huts, which makes no sense at all. If they were leaving because something was happening, they would have left with their dogs and they would have taken their belongings with them as well. Then came across the most disturbing, weird surprises of all. They discovered that the ancestral graves were empty. Whoever or whatever had taken all the living villagers also dug up the dead as well, and even though the icy ground around the graves was hard as an iron, the middle of winter Canada, I don't even know if it completely defrosts in the middle of summer in Canada, somebody took the time to dig up dead bodies. Huge no-no. This is not something that natives do. You don't disturb the dead. You just don't do it. And it is also said in all the accounts that the Mounties also noticed a very crazy, strange blue light. Not the northern lights, but something that seemed artificial in the distance. It pulsated, it flashed, it faded, and that's it. Now, the Canadian government and the Mounties, when you ask them now, like they never existed. This is completely false, but there was an article that existed. This went out all around the world. People talked about this. This wasn't just a small town paper in Canada talking about it. This was news around the world at one point in time. And you think, could they have just left? They wouldn't have left. They wouldn't have left their stuff. No, the fact is, for a very long time, we all have known how shitty the American government has been to the indigenous people of the land. Within the last couple of years, I would say about 5 to 10, we've really started to hear that, Canada was pretty shitty too. They were doing all the same shitty stuff that we were doing over here. And you just have to wonder, with all the other atrocities that were being committed upon indigenous people throughout the Americas and everywhere else as well, was this a forced disappearance? I think it's plausible. I absolutely think it's plausible. There have been many tribes over the Americas that have completely disappeared. They don't just walk off in the woods and get lost. No, something happened to them, and I wonder if forced disappearance was happening much more often at that point in history than we suspect. So this one's going to be the Roman legion stationed in Roman Britain. Following the Roman conquest of Britain, they show up around the year 43 AD. Then they completely disappear from the historical record without explanation around the year 125. Throughout history, people have tried to come up with the answer to their disappearance, the disappearance of about 9,000 men from this legion, but no one really knows. I mean, there's a lot of good theories out there, but we just don't know for sure, right? By and far, history knows that these soldiers existed. They existed in Britain for about 80 years. They are mentioned in Roman historical records. They've also left behind their own evidence in Britain, such as stone inscriptions in places like York. Then nothing. They're gone. And then Rome also just stops talking about them. And you would think that maybe they would send out a search party, but let's be real. This was the very edge of the Roman Empire at that point in time. And I wonder if they kind of knew what happened. My theory is this was a forced disappearance, but this time it was the indigenous population saying, you put about 80 years of iron fist down on us and we are going to take you out once and for all. I lean towards thinking that they were ambushed and attacked in guerrilla warfare type tactics and just erased from that region. Some of the leading theories that are out there by others are, some of them believe that maybe they just abandoned posts and said, F it, I don't want to be part of the Roman Empire. Some believe that they went all the way up to Scandinavia to continue the conquest on. But there's no evidence for any of that, or even what I'm suggesting, so there's that as well. I do think that the people in Britain decided they were done with the Roman rule and just took them all out. Now, this last one is very much like the first one I mentioned. Different part of the Americas. This time it's in Brazil. This is a story that goes out. It's talked about around the world for a hot minute, and then it just stops. And if you ask the Brazilian government or people in Brazil now, they're like, don't even know what you're talking about, never heard of it, this isn't real, this is just a manufactured story. However, there is a lot to the story, so I just don't know. I mean, I honestly don't know, but when I'm looking at it, I think, I wonder if it did happen, if it did exist, and this is another forced disappearance. This is the story of the village of Hauer Verde. I really don't know how to pronounce it. It doesn't even exist. And like so many legends from this area, information on it is very difficult to track down. But what information is available is pretty damn perplexing. The story goes like this. There is a family that wanted to go and visit their kin in a village in the town or village of Hauer Verde. They had made plans to visit a relative that had recently been married and that they were going to stay with these people for about a month. And once they arrived, just like Joe LaBelle in the first story, they were just like, it's dead. There is no sound. There is nobody talking. Where did everybody go? And they're struck by this. As they're going through the village, they are starting to feel ill at ease. They're just like, this isn't right. And who wouldn't feel that way? If you knew a part of your family lived in a village and there's just nobody there, it would be very bizarre. They passed by local houses, they looked in windows, and it was almost immediately evident that something was wrong. Something was very wrong. No one was anywhere to be seen. And eventually they come to their relative's house. Once they get into the house, they notice that there is food rotting on the dining room table. Chairs are knocked over, but not like there was a huge fight or scuffle, more like people were leaving in a hurry. They quickly left in the middle of a meal kind of thing. The police were called, investigators descended on the town to look through the village, but there was no signs of violence. There were no bodies, there were no packed belongings. Food was left on many tables as if during a meal everyone decided that they were out. As investigators got to the town school, they did find a gun. The gun was sitting up against a table in the school. In a couple of reports, it says that one shot looked like it had been fired out of it. In a couple other reports, it said that 4 shots had been fired and the casings were still in the school. But it's not evident what was shot because there was no blood or any leftover carcass anywhere. And then on the blackboard of the school, it said, written in Latin, "There is no salvation." It has also said that as investigators left the town school and they came towards the church, part of the church had been burned. It didn't burn to the ground, but part of the church looked as if someone had tried to commit arson on it, and it burnt about halfway down. And eventually, the jungle swallows up the village, erases everything, all trace of it. To date, it is considered an unsolved mystery. As with other disappearances, many have tried to explain this one as well. Some have thought that these villagers left because of the political climate of the time, and others thought that the Catholic Church was involved somehow. And yet still others believe that this village never existed, an urban legend, if you will. I thought about maybe something from the town can give us a clue on this. The town's name is Huer Verde, or Huer Verde, and the only 2 other languages I know that the word Huer is in are Dutch, which it would mean prostitute, and German, which means listen. Verde is green in Portuguese, and so I wonder if maybe this was a village of immigrants. They could have been Dutch or German immigrants, and because of the political climate of the time and because of the things that were happening around that country, they were forced to disappear. I don't know. Maybe this is another way that we can look at all these old stories. So many of these stories over history have been looked at like it's BS or fanciful, or that it's completely untrue altogether. But we know that many governments, and not just governments, many times other people as well, have no problem at all making people disappear. How many of these old stories could we go back and look and find ties that link them to this category? All right, that's all I have for you guys today. It's just a thought, crazy theory. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. Hey, if you liked what you watched, please hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up. And if you don't, well then don't. I hope you guys have yourselves a very great day.